In this lesson, we're going to learn how to reveal an object that crosses itself using strokes and masks. So here's where we left off. You can open up 17, growing complex multi-object. And so next we're going to be working with this object here, the left curlies. Now we're going to use mostly the techniques we've used in the previous lessons, but we have a new twist because this object crosses over itself. So let's pre-comp this and see how we're going to deal with this. So I'm just going to call this grow. And so as we have in the past few lessons, let's just come in here with our pen tool, left click and drag out our main limb. And let's make sure that we're actually selecting our layer before we do that. All right. So the main limb for me is always the longest limb. So in this case, it's going to be this one here. So we do want to draw on a path that crosses over itself. So very similar to what we've done in the previous lessons. And let's just bring that back a little and continue drawing this out. Okay, so now that we've almost finished drawing this out, we can add on our animation preset for our stroke reveal here and take a look at what happens. So let's hit U and we have our usual reveal. Now we run into a problem as soon as we hit the part where we cross over ourselves. So you can see here we now have this little artifact going on. Now, depending on the situation, it may or may not be in our best interest to fix it, depending on if it's visible and if it's really that big of an issue. But for this case, I really do want to fix it. So let's take a look now at how we're going to animate this and change this to make it work. So really, the best solution I've found is let's just create a mask around it and cut it out. So let's grab our pen tool here, let's left click, and let's draw a mask. And let's make sure we're not creating a new shape and we're actually selecting the object. So let's left click and draw a mask where we think this should be cut off, so right about there. And then just close out this mask. Let's hit M. Let's just call this our cutout. All right. And now let's change this into a different type of mask. So let's dial this down and change this. And it looks like something I just did accidentally closed my mask or opened it up, so let's just close that again. Okay, and now let's change this from an add to a subtract. And now we've successfully cut out that part of the mask. So now let's just create another cutout. So I'm just going to rename this cutout 1 or cutout left. And let's come in with our pen tool and again draw out a new mask to cut out a different part of this. Okay. So again, I'm just using the Bezier to give myself a nice curve there. We can set this one to subtract as well. And now if we zoom out, we can see we need a little bit of work done to get these masks perfect. So what we can do is we can just left click and drag and move these points until they cut it out correctly. Now what this will do is it'll make it look like a very clean stroke, and then we need to animate these masks off as soon as the stroke hits it again. So we can see here the stroke is about to cross over itself. So on this frame we can see that of course our masks are working, so we need to turn them off or animate them off. So let's take a look at the last frame right before we need to turn them off. So it looks like this frame right here is good. So let's take the second cutout here and let's just animate its expansion. So we'll set a key on the frame before, and the frame when we want to remove this mask, let's just set this something a large negative number. So you'll see now the mask disappears, and we'll need to animate this left hand side out as well. So let's set a key, go to the next frame, set this to negative. And now we can see that our mask is growing along just fine as it has before. So I'm going to hit A and hit U to hide all this again, and hit the 0 key to take a look. So now we can see that by using two masks to sort of cut out part of our image and then animating them turning off to go with the growing effect, we were able to create this effect that grows along itself and crosses over itself without having any visual artifacting. Now, of course, the mask animation is very dependent on the stroke animation, so if you want to change your stroke animation, make sure to do that before we come in and turn on and off our two cutout masks. So just to finish this off, I'm going to simply duplicate my layer here, and let's call this one main limb, and let's call this one first limb, and of course we can just delete all of these masks. And then on this first limb, let's draw out this curve here. And so pretty much for the rest of this lesson, we're just going to be doing things that we essentially have been doing the last few lessons. So if you want to feel free to jump ahead, I'm just going to take this time now to finish this off. So let's set this mask, set the stroke on. All right, that's looking good. Duplicate it. Let's again turn off the stroke. Let's just draw out this limb here. And again, we'll just need to change the mask, probably change the animation as well. Let's take a look. Okay, looking good. Let's set this first stroke, or the small limb, to grow a little bit faster. It's because everything else is going to be racing past it. Okay, there we go. All right, looking good. Okay, so now we just need the last limb, or the last curl at the end here. So all we need to do is, again, duplicate it. And let's say this is the bottom curl. Again, simply turn off the stroke. Let's figure out where we need to draw it. So here's where we draw our path. All right, and again, we'll need to set to the new mask and change the animation, because this probably is not going to work out for us too well to start out with. So we want it to hit right about this frame. So let's just grab our two keys, pull them forward. Let's take a look, and needed a frame earlier, so it begins to grow out. There we go. Okay, looking good, looking good, looking good. All right, let's zoom out and do the stroke test. Looks like we got everything, so let's just preview this animation. Take a look. Great. So now we have our strokes all working for this, and we were able to come in and mask it out and successfully sort of animate over ourselves. So this is going to be a really useful technique for creating these type of motions, because this often happens with this type of an object. And as we can see inside of our growing elements, we've got a doozy of one coming up. This one crosses itself once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, quite often. So in the next lesson, we'll learn how we can continue to apply the techniques we've learned so far to continue animating our growing elements.